Summoner School is probably my most favorite subreddit to use, second's probably r/slash illegally small cats. There is a lot of important and useful discourse here, but sometimes I feel like some of these posts can be quite haphazard. They're extremely specific, which means even if those questions were to be answered correctly, the impact they would have on that person's rank is probably less than 1%. Instead of trying to address the big picture and gain a big jump in their elo, I find that a lot of these players are too caught up on the really small details. And while yes, the small details really do matter, you want to address those big priorities first. And I know just how those people feel. In 2014, I actually finished my first placements in Bronze 2. I spent the next 2 years in silver, and I spent another 2 years in gold, and I spent the last 5 years in platinum before I finally got to diamond this year. The game is entirely too complex for new players, especially for people like me who didn't have a PvP background to begin with. You'd think you're doing such good work by trying to memorize the answer to every single micro interaction in the game, but all you're really doing is slowing down your own learning curve. Guys, think of it like the gym. The big three to gains in the gym are muscular tension, diet, and sleep. In League of Legends, there is also a big three when it comes to gaining elo. Those fundamentals are champion mastery, growth mindset, and mindful practice. Remember the 80-20 rule I discussed in my first video? Well, this is the 20% you have to learn to get 80% of the results. And out of the big three, champion mastery is the most important by far.
Do you feel right now that you have the most skill in all the bottom lanes?
By far.
By far.
There is a lot of addicted, mentally damaged one-tricks that can get diamonds simply because of their immense champion mastery. So let's get right into it. What exactly is champion mastery? Champion mastery is the ability to recognize your win condition and execute towards them regardless of game state. Champion mastery allows you to keep your eyes on the prize and have a plan for the innumerable amounts of shit League is going to throw your way. It allows you to hone your attention in on what truly matters instead of wasting your time worrying about the 1%ers. Another way to look at champion mastery is you have a clear blueprint on how to win a game as that champion. You know how your champion wants to win. Having good champion mastery means that you will learn to consistently put your champions in winning positions. You are not relying on good teammates, you are not relying on the meta, you are not relying on being in the zone, or any other form of good luck outside of your control to win games. Understanding champion mastery and developing a blueprint for winning allows you a clear path forward, cutting through the countless amounts of bullshit the game will throw in your face. It's basically an extension of what people call win conditions, but you are doing it automatically as you put the games into your champion. I'm telling you guys, I'm the best living proof of this methodology. I would have been stuck under diamond for 11 more years if I hadn't learned about the concept of champion mastery and focusing in on how my champion really wants to win. I still play every champion under the sun in normals and ARAMs, but ranked is a different beast and there are certain rules you have to abide by in order to succeed within it. So let's break it down. How do you acquire champion mastery? Step number 1 is to decide your one trick. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about whether you should one trick or not. I'm going to assume you already watched my first video and know the reasoning. If you haven't, I'll put a title card up there. You can watch it in your own time. There are many different ways of going about choosing a one trick. The important thing to remember here is that you are choosing a one trick for solo queue only. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to play that champion for the rest of your life. Granted, if you're a new player, you probably should. I would define a new player as anyone who has roughly less than 3 years of competitive PvP gaming experience. I think sticking to one champion can be really useful here in learning just PvP dynamics in general. This is because the first few years are extremely critical to you understanding League of Legends, and I would recommend learning it through the lens of a single champion at first. In my experience, there are 2 different ways to pick a one trick. The first is prioritizing fun. This is the route I would generally recommend overall, especially to newer players. This is centered around the champion you enjoy the most, ideally one that can play multiple positions. The nice thing with this route is that no matter what happens to your champion, you will never be inclined to leave it because you're having so much fun. The downside, however, is that it can take a while for you to find that champion. Try to really ask yourself why you are playing the game and what kind of champions would help you achieve that fantasy. You can draw from your experience playing other games here or just archetypes in pop culture that you feel drawn to. For instance, what kind of characters did you play in your favorite MMORPG? An archer or a healer? What personality trait does your favorite anime character tend to have? Are they devious and future thinking, or are they noble and dependable? You have to mix and match and sort of have to test the waters before you really settle on something you see yourself committing to long term. Another downside is that if your champion is popular, you'll get it less. If this is the case, it's simply something you'll have to accept moving forward. Just have a secondary champion that's easier to play and dodge when you can. The second way is prioritizing power. This is centered around high win rate champions that are very powerful in solo queue. The good thing about choosing this route is that you have literally no excuses. You have handpicked the champion from the start to climb with. However, there are a couple of downsides. You are not necessarily guaranteed to like your champion. Because of this, games can feel like somewhat of a drag to get through, but you really have to discipline your way through it. When you are going through prospective champions, feel free to skip over anything you don't like. You don't always have to pick the highest win rate champion. Personally, anything over 52% win rate over the last 30 days is a good bet. If you're going down this path, treat your champion like a gun for hire. You're essentially paying them your time in exchange for elo in the long term. This is actually how I picked up Tryndamere. I saw that he was doing really well after his 13.17 patch buffs and decided I would one-trick him to Diamond no matter what. Granted, I've already been playing the game for 11 years already and had plenty of time to experiment with different champions. Because of this, I'd only recommend this route to people who have at least a few years of experience playing a lot of different champions. If you have developed champion breadth in your time playing League, picking up a new champion shouldn't be that difficult. Now all you have to do is dig deeper. In League, there is something for everybody, so take your time and learn how you tick, and use that information to help you on your journey. As long as you don't get frustrated and start having fantasies of playing other champions, you'll get the elo you want. Remember guys, you can always play other champions in normals with friends. Stick to your one trick in ranked. I cannot stress this enough. Step number 2 in achieving champion mastery is figuring out your champion's win conditions. There are many different ways to do this, but I have a simple way for you to visualize this to help you along your journey. Now, take out a piece of paper and do this exercise with me. Draw a big square. Now draw 2 vertical lines splitting it into 3 columns. Label each column early game, mid game, late game. Now draw 2 horizontal lines splitting the square into 9. Label each row behind, even, and ahead. I think you're getting the picture now. I made you draw this out so you can have a visual representation of what I'm trying to preach, but this grid should eventually be burned into your memory. As you go through your journey with your champion, you'll start filling these boxes out with your reference points. Reference points are something to keep in mind as you're playing the champion, and they can vary depending on game states, but you always want to have a blueprint going forward. And this is how you develop basic champion mastery, by understanding how to win the game given a basic set of game states. There are countless videos and guides on the internet for playing different champions. The point of the raid grid is to compartmentalize all this information in an easy blueprint for practical use. It acts as your mantra. Whenever you are stuck in a particular game state and don't know how to progress, you can always reference back to your raid grid for a way out. Over time, these boxes will meld together in your head as you play, and playing your champion will become more automatic. Take Tryndamere for example. I had the grid filled out like this when I first started, but now when I play him, I can only think of 2 things: even, lane state, and split. Those 9 boxes were condensed into 2. I've put enough high intensity games on the champion to boil down Tryndamere into literally 4 words. Over time, you will be able to automatically think of these things in game, but for now, just have it with you in a Word doc or on a piece of paper to help as a physical reminder. Now, the last step to developing champion mastery is volume. We all know this was going to be in the video eventually. There isn't much I can advise you on this front, but I can provide you with a few tips to optimize your learning experience. Number 1, try to dedicate blocks of time to solo queue. You can get into the zone faster if you have a weekly schedule to play with instead of just queuing up randomly. Blocks of 2 to 3 games. Take at least an hour break between blocks, no more than 2 blocks a day. Number 3, if you have time left over, consider reviewing your debts. Reviewing can be an extremely difficult thing to get into. I've been reviewing for like 2.5 months now, and only now have I started getting a little bit decent at it. It doesn't matter how much you write on your raid grid if you aren't putting yourself in enough scenarios to test and improve upon it. While ranked anxiety is probably a topic for another video, I'll leave you with this. When it comes to champion mastery, not enough games is just as big of a problem as too many games. So remember guys, get the games in. In conclusion, champion mastery is probably the most important thing needed to climb solo queue. It cuts through obscure small details and focuses on what will bring sustainable, consistent results in the future. Learn to dedicate yourself to champion mastery, and I promise guys, you're going to climb through the ranks. Good luck.